Hey, welcome back to the April edition of Chiropractic Older Guys
Mhm.
Musings. Today we're going to discuss the need for principled scripts, including procedures and how it looked in our offices. And Terrence and Mike, let's jump right into that.
All right.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Through the years in family and dealing with other chiropractors, there's always been this little debate about scripting and the necessity for it or not. I've had some pretty vehemently arguments of both sides, uh, and I've worked from both sides. I've worked without scripts and I've worked with scripts, and so. I've never really. I know what Brad does. I never knew what you did, Terrence. I didn't know if you had any particular scripting, if it was written out. Did you create it? Did you get it from somebody else?
Well, yeah. So, starting out, we scripted when I worked in my dad's office that, we had something called the continuing visit communication card. So the
Okay.
first 60 visits were essentially scripted, like something to talk about, a brochure to give, that aspect of it. But also then we would rehearse in our meetings each week. And I kind of became in charge of this. I embraced it, scripts for the whole team about, hey, I'm running late, I got a flat tire, I'm sick, my kids, whatever it might be, so that we were rehearsing those things. And the
Pardon me.
thought the thought process was that, you should have something to say, right? And if you
Hmm.
don't rehearse it and practice it, right? And
Yeah.
then, that evolved, with that, then both the CVCC card, that gave you as a doc something to be focused on as opposed to, hey, how's the weather?
Right.
How's your pain? Whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Um, and as you guys would be well aware, then that just keeps evolving. And if you're moving to a more high volume model, then you got to be focused and efficient the entire time. You'd rather have a focused doc for 1 or 2 minutes than a distracted doc for five or
Right.
10 minutes who's just talking about the ball game or whatever it might be. Um, and then I, really got down to um, in the adjustment room to the let's check it. There it is. The subluxation. Let's free that up. That's a great adjustment. And some sort of connection to the
Yeah.
brain, body, organ, etc. But also, I always say reading the room. Where was the patient in that moment, right? Are they embracing what you're saying? Do they need more? Do you need to point to a poster? Do you need to tell a story? And then when I was thinking about this, the principled aspect of it, really the principle is the doc, right? So if
Yeah.
you're the doc and you're not embracing what your story is, I know I've said this before, what's your story, and
Yeah.
telling
I'm
it
a,
over and over and over and over again. And I think in the group I'm comfortable. If somebody's got a based practice and that's their story, good. Tell your story.
mhm.
That's got You got to own it, because not, as we're aware of, we're going to try to get students to buy into or participate in a subluxation or a power that made the body heals the body practice. I think you got to get there, and you got to get there through pain, and then corrective care, and then wellness, and then healing, or some aspect of it. But it is a journey, and as long as you're embracing some level of scripting, right, and becoming, continuing to improve yourself as the doc, I think you're going to find it, because it's the people who just stop at pain, right, and don't continue to study. I didn't know all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and Mike, you're a great example. Even though you're Jim Sigafus's nephew, that doesn't mean you were instantly, "Oh,
No.
I got it,
No.
I
Far from
got
it.
it."
No.
Here, see it in lightning bolt. right? That, so you had to came about it over time, and you're still working on it, which is the beauty of it. But a lot of people in any career, they don't want to continue to work on that. And
Sure.
so chiropractors, you got to want to continue to improve yourself. I think if you're doing that, you're going to find, because you're going to become the principal, your principal, and then you're going to build scripts, and you should want to get in. Again, the greatest thing is to figure out you're not friends with your patients, right? That you
Mhm.
can't be their friend if you're their doctor.
Friendly.
It's like having kids. You can't be their friend if you're going to be the father.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit here, guys.
I
Let's back up just one thing.
I was going to say that.
Why is it important to have scripting
So here's the
and
thing, Brett.
procedures?
Terrence, I mean, you just pinpointed on, I think, the hardest aspect of being scripted is at those tables, right? Because it's objection management. You're handling, somebody throws you a curveball and you have to handle it, right?
Yep.
Very difficult for us. It's even more difficult for our team. And we did. We scripted those, what let's call them objection management type things, right?
Right.
We scripted those things with the team and we role play them. Uh, that's incredibly important. That goes without saying because if the doc at the table doesn't have a set of things that he gets the patient on the table with, they're going to want to have a conversation, right? And if they
Yes.
want to have a conversation, then you got to be able to handle that. So yeah, and if they don't, then what happens? They wind up talking to not chiropractic, or sometimes they even wind up talking to another patient that's sitting waiting for a table, which is to me is one of the worst things you can do.
Right.
You want to talk about not being purposeful or intentional. Pick your head up and talk to somebody while you got your hands on somebody else. That's just silly. You hit on the thing that I think is the most difficult for the chiropractor is to stay in the moment at the table. I really do. And if they don't role play that and practice that, think about that, that really to me might be the difference between 300 and 500 a week or more, right?
Right.
But if we back up a little bit in terms of principled scripting, I used to get crap from my uncle because he would say, you don't need to script. If you're purposeful and you're intentional, what you say will be the right things. And to some degree, I can't disagree with that. But at the same time, he gave me scripts from Smalling and Humble, and he gave me something he wrote called the Mecca of Chiropractic, and it was day one, day two scripting, right? And
Right.
quite frankly, until I nailed that, and I used to tell CJ all the time at the beginning, I don't want to be CJ Mertz. I don't want your words. I'll figure it out. And he would be like, well, why would you want to figure it out when it's right here? Just learn it, put your intention behind it, and make it your own. And I have to say, that's the biggest difference for me um, in growing 100 plus patient visits a week in just a couple of weeks. Because when somebody walked through the front door, I now knew where they were going to be on the third day. Whereas prior to that, pardon my language, I had no fucking idea where they were going to be on day three
Right.
because I never knew what I was saying. I thought I was saying the right things, right? And I've come across that in the 20 plus years I was coaching. I came across that with so many, let's call them kids, right? New chiropractors. Um, they don't know what to say. They didn't teach us in school what to say.
Not at all.
They did what you said, Terrence, and you took charge of it in your office and they worked on it. They role played it. You're going to F up all the time. Hell, at one point at my desk, I had a new patient script written out and it was like on a wall where the new patient couldn't see it and I could glance at it, right? How
Right.
contrived is that, right? But ultimately, we got to the point where maybe I tweaked some things, but they were my words. And I knew, and I say this all the time, once I nailed that, I knew where you were going to be in 2 weeks. And if you weren't there in 2 weeks, I probably lost you. So I kept you a lifetime or I lost you in the first 2 weeks.
Right.
It was
Well, I
principle.
mean, in scripts that CJ gave you, or my dad, any wherever we got them, you have to have a starting place because they don't give
Yeah.
you anything. And nor as a student are you really aware that, oh, I need some things to a reference point to start from.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, to improve from and continue to work on. And it can start with somebody else's words.
Yeah.
And it probably it should. And then
Yeah.
you, you do need to then make them your own. And that's, your principle, your intention, your tweaks,
Your feelings.
your feelings, yeah, who you are. And yeah, you're right, not CJ Mertz. And that's an interesting comment because a lot of coaches have said, oh, don't reinvent the wheel, just say what I said. And I get that, but you're not that guy. You're not Jim Sigafus. I'm not Mike Martin. I'm not Brett. I still have to make it my own, and you should be dedicated to that again from your whatever your principle is. And we can talk, we will talk about the subluxation and mental impulse and all the above, but you still got to figure out what that is. And you should be dedicated as a chiropractor, should be dedicated to studying and trying to improve yourself and continuing to search for, again, what works for you.
Right.
That should be the part, but you got to have some place to start. And that's what a good coach will give you, Brad.
The the reason that I embraced the scripting from the first phone call all the way through each procedure and process, because my goal was to convert every patient to choose lifetime chiropractic care.
Mhm.
They don't walk into your office with that mentality. I don't know how many times in your career did the patient say, "Hey, listen, I got subluxation here and I want you to take care of it for the rest of my life. And then make me pay for it out of my pocket
Right.
because insurance won't cover it." That's just the opposite. People want to get in there, get the least amount of treatment, get rid of their symptoms, and without having to do anything or pay anything,
Right.
and be as inconvenienced as little as possible. So we have to shift their paradigm from the first phone call on. And if you're not scripted, you're ad-libbing. And if you're ad-libbing, you are going in so many different directions. And I'm not just talking about me, the doctor, I'm talking about the entire team. If we're ad-libbing, first of all, it's going to slow you down. You're going to get thrown off onto tangents, and you're not going to get the patient to focus on it. And again, we're not their friend, we're their doctor, and we're trying to help them achieve optimum levels of health and well-being. And that's a process to teach them that. Because nowhere, if you think the doctors don't know what they're taught, the patients certainly don't. And we have to shift that paradigm by having those scripts. And you got to be able to do those in the times that you're busy and when you're not busy. I take this, what you said months ago, Terrence, and that said you would talk to your team about what if we had 10 new patients on the books? How would we do that? Even if you didn't have any new patients on the books, or how if you had 40 people walk in the door at one time, how would you handle that? You were prepping them, you were scripting them, you were putting those procedures in place to handle that so you could reach that level. If you don't do that when you're slow, you're certainly not going to be able to do that when you're busy.
Yep.
Exactly.
You gotta stay on script when you're slow. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta adjust that patient in, a minute or two or whatever the time frame is, whether you're busy or slow. You can't be, oh, I'm slow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna BS with this person or whatever. No,
Yeah.
no,
You
no,
can't do
no.
that.
Nope, can't do
Nope.
it.
Nope.
Don't do it. Not gonna happen. Same thing as the people who say, oh, if I have 15 people each hour, that ain't happening. You're not, it's either be ready for three times that many in 1 hour.
Hmm.
And the only way to get that slow hour boosted up is to have that many people in your strong hour,
Yep.
because then again, you're right, Brad. It's all about focus. Then it's your intent. Then it's your principle.
You said it. Yeah. It's all about focus, right?
Yep.
Because I know without a doubt when I was winging something, just ad-libbing, I was forgetting things,
Mhm.
you know? I was forgetting, maybe, my intention wasn't right, or I was forgetting the two things, in scripting, at least for the day one and day two for me was I could tell them my intentions and I can tell them what they could expect from me. and what I expected from them. It's kind of like this is the way we're going to do things, right? That's why I say 2 weeks you were gone, or I kept you forever because here this is my house. This is the way we do things. You tell me what you want, and I'll tell you how we're going to do this, right?
Right.
Um, and people would not come back after that first day or second day, but that's okay, right?
Right.
That's okay. I was building I was laying a foundation to build a house of volume, you know? And I tell you the other thing it helped me with because me, I from the way I grew up, I would have given it away for free, pretty much, you know?
Right.
So what the scripting made me do was tell them what today's fee was and that they were expected to pay it by the end of the first day or second day.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things that it got me. You would talk about uncomfortable, but after going through that whole scripting, and today was 225, we expect you to take care of that at the end, however your script goes, right? That was huge for me. Huge for me.
Well, remember, I mean, I think the other thing about scripting is students or docs, new docs, and maybe they're more so than us. Every other industry has scripting. You want fries with that? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a script.
Yeah.
Every dentist, when they're closing you, quote, on, more dental work, that's a script. A plastic surgeon has a script. All those
Yeah.
things, the nice waiting room, the cold bottle of water, the cough, whatever.
Yep.
However,
Yep.
you can almost, all those things, they're following a script. And again, the people who do it best are the ones who make it their own,
Absolutely.
whether it's a, McDonald's to the plastic surgeon or an attorney or whatever it might be,
The
they make it
Ritz.
their own. They make it because they have an intent, they have a principle of
Yep. Right. You're right.
why they're trying to do it.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
glad you said that because I can tell you, and I heard this from clients that patients would look at them and make a remark about the sales pitch, right? I never ever got that. Never ever got it
yep,
because Brad will tell you, man, we trained our scripts with cameras on us and would critique them. You know, we put the work in, right?
right,
Right, to make them our own.
yeah,
And I wanted to make sure my team was scripted too, because I want to know what they're telling the patients across the front counter. And then they know what I'm telling them, so we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
Because you
Look,
don't
if
want the
there's
staff telling you something different than what you're
yeah.
telling them in the back.
And not only that, if there's a hole in the bucket and you're tapping out, or you're getting all these new patients, yet your volume's not going up, and you're trying to find out where the chink in the armor is, if we don't have that set policy procedure and the scripting, how do you find it? How do you fix
Right.
it? Right? You know?
Going back to what you said, Terrence, a couple minutes ago, you have to be able, and learn this from Greg Stanley, to grow your practice, you have to be able to see double the number of people in your busiest hour. Because you can't
oh yeah,
fill in all those hours. You have,
yeah,
because that's when people want to come in. So you got to create procedures and policies to be able to handle that kind of volume. And that's where it takes discipline to stick with that, whether you're busy or not.
it's a, it's a big
You
thing.
know,
Yeah.
as you're
You gotta
talking
want to
about
do
this,
it.
and
Yeah.
it's obvious that we all do this stuff. We've done it a little bit differently, but it's the same tenor behind it, same feeling behind it, same intention behind it. But it brings up the question in my mind then, um, and again, with clients, it was always tough to get them to set training days, right? Once a week. Are you
Mhm.
training your team, right? Are you training yourself? That was the biggest thing. But typically they were if they were on a call with me. But to get them to dedicate an hour a week to training was tough.
Yep. It's very
Um,
difficult.
it was
And
given in my office. It was given. it just was part of the office. But and I knew it took a while to get there. Did you train once a week, Terrence, or?
Yeah, once a week, and then later, and I used to work all day Thursday too. When I stopped working the mornings on Thursday, then both Tuesday and Thursday before shift started, we had an hour approximately of training, and um, arguably the most important script for the staff was the new patient phone call script.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because if I could get them to do that, and they would do it I'd make them do 5 new patient calls, right? We'd, role play that.
Hmm.
So they did it exactly right and wrote it out right, with detail on the form, not sloppy as well. But kind of like the Suzuki method. If they could do one script well, then the rest of them would come. And
Hmm.
the other part of it, and you know this, both of you know this, that I had to be able to be better at it than they were.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And I also had to be able to, I could do it without looking,
Yeah.
right? I would just go through the whole new page, the sheet they were following. And that would be probably one of the meetings I would start it with. All right, ring, ring, ring. And
Ring.
I'd stand up and I'd do it. Boom, boom, boom. And they say, all right, now the patient comes through the door. I would all from just right here.
Yeah,
And
well,
it would be boom, boom, boom. And then here was a challenge. Then the next time you're doing it, then I just keep moving it. Now you walk us through it. You walk us through it so that they could then teach. Because if you can do it and then teach somebody to do it,
hmm
now, now that's a home run for staff. If they can teach the other staff to do it,
hmm Yeah.
right? Once you teach
Yeah.
it, now you've locked it in. So that, yeah. So once a week for the first 15 years, and then twice a week for the next 20
Yeah.
plus, right?
Yeah.
Um, and but and
I
the other thing I found though is very small bites. It'd be like 15 minutes of that, and then I'd like shift and like, all right, and then I might show 3 X-rays, lateral cervicals of patients, right, or go through a file or whatever, and then maybe come back and okay, now let's do the new patient, because
yeah.
scripting for an hour is hard. It's for them, right?
Yeah.
I would just do it real 15, then probably break for not a break, but move to something else. Why are we doing this? Then back to the new patient script as a team, and then I had 2 staff, and let them sit there and do it together, and even and then if I had an associate, whomever it was, then I do take that associate and do scripting with them, or I'd flip them in with the new patient. They needed to be able to do the new patient
Yeah.
call as well.
Jason, the associate training was always separate. I mean, obviously they were there during the regular office trainings, but um, the associate training was always done a different time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, they needed more time, even
and,
more time. Yeah.
yeah. And Brad, your team training was separate from your, what did you call them? Office meetings or what?
Yeah,
He told me this.
we'd have a team meeting every Monday morning before the shift started. And just before our huddle, we would go through whatever we needed to. And then on Tuesdays, we would train. We always tried to keep them separate
Right.
because we wanted to be able to stay focused. And we always did them standing up too. I read years ago some general
Your
would have
meetings or
team
trainings?
meetings, and
Yeah.
he would always do it standing up because they went faster and stayed more focused. When you sit
So
down, people
explain,
start to kind of settle in and get sidetracked. It's pretty weird.
differentiate the two for me.
All right. Well, your team meeting, you'd be going in and you'd have an agenda. I would do every Saturday or Sunday when I went in for my extra time. I would create an agenda for the team meeting, and that would include any promotions that we were doing, any changes in the schedule, any making sure that people knew to send me the inventory so I could order things. Just the minutia of practice.
When did you
And
go
then the
over
team,
numbers?
pardon me,
When did you go over numbers?
I went over numbers in the team meeting.
Okay.
I didn't do that in the training. I went over the numbers in the meeting because I wanted to focus on not the results, but I wanted to focus on the process in the team trainings.
Trainings. Right. Right. I did that also, but I got that from you. And it made a difference. It took because the meeting was only 10 minutes, maybe 15. If I put that in the training, then we were there for an hour and a half, right?
Because
It
then
was
you would
too
start
long.
discussing back and forth who's
Yeah, it
missing.
was too much too long.
Exactly.
Cool. I think it's important. I don't think a lot of people in our profession are doing these things, honestly.
Yeah,
No, and that's
I
why
think
they're wondering why the practice doesn't grow.
Yeah, right?
They're just when you're just kind of floating through amorphously, there's no
Mhm.
form to it at all. It's hard to gain any momentum.
It's amazing to me. This is off subject, but I think unless somebody else has something to say about scripting and training and the importance of it. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to say about the team trainings. The thing that I did in team trainings, and maybe you guys did this too, is we did the scripting and stuff, but I always finished the team training with some sort of philosophy, whether it was a reading from a green book or, I always wanted to anchor it with why the hell we were doing it in the first place, you know?
Absolutely.
It was kind of like I kind of treated it like an extended 1 minute meeting. There was always something, positive at the beginning, and then we would do the training, and then when I was finishing, I finished with something really motivational, right?
Uplifting. You want something
Yeah,
uplifting.
yeah,
Absolutely.
always finish that way. Didn't want to walk out of that place with somebody kicking themselves in the ass because they couldn't get something right, you know?
no, we
So,
start, every shift
yeah,
with our affirmation,
yep,
and I always talk about why we need to serve more people
yeah,
all the time, all the time. And at
all
the
the
end
time.
at the end of the day, and I don't know what's happening now, but I would review what we did, and I would always say, whatever number it was, could we have served one more person? Could we have seen one more new patient? What would you have done if 10 people came in at 7:01?
Yeah.
I would,
Eh,
why aren't, and then why not?
hmm,
And I would
that's right.
always
Why
ask,
not?
well, yep, I would say, just before you go to bed, give me 90 seconds. 90 seconds of new patients, of volume, of positivity for our practice. I said, I can't check on you if you're doing it or not, but if you should be able to look me in the eye and say you did it,
I know.
and I'm in. And I would tell them all the time, if I can get you to buy in to what I'm selling here
Yeah,
about
right.
how this changes your life, and if you can get dedicated to being script, learn these things, do these things, if you can do this here, you will do it at home. I said, and if you don't, shame on you, not me, shame on you. That's your issue, but this will change your life if you will participate. And
Hmm.
it takes them along. There's so many staff, this, so many people that you could see they didn't buy in, and then all of a sudden, at maybe a year, they're like, this guy really means it. This guy, you know,
Yeah.
and it's almost a little bit insulting or embarrassing, when I spoke at that thing last year at Pennsylvania, a bunch of students, and they say, "Oh, I can see you're really passionate." I'm like, "Yeah, but what did you learn? Don't tell me I'm passionate. I did it. I'm doing it, or
Yeah.
how are you,
Yeah.
it's
That's
almost like good job for you. Good
that's
job.
right. You
Yeah.
yeah, you teach for an hour and then somebody would say, that was a great presentation.
Yeah.
What the what is that? Tell me what you heard.
Yeah.
right? I
Did I move you at all? And
yeah,
if I didn't, come
yeah,
over here in the corner. Tell them, let's get to work, right?
yeah,
Anyway, but
yeah. I know, I know. I would. It's interesting that I've had this bit of what do I want to call it? I'll call it a bit of a uh, bit of a couple of negative days thinking about the book, and not so much the book itself because I'm perfectly happy and content with what's in it. I've had a couple of experiences the last couple of days with people that I thought should have really gotten it and understood it, and um, and it just they just didn't give me the response that I thought they would have, and it kind of pissed me off. And we're talking about guys that I've known for 25 plus years, and I've come to the realization that some of them haven't even read it, right? These are friends of ours. I mean, you know them, and it's like, and I took it personally. I did. I took it personal, and I got
sure.
pissed off. And fortunately, my wife, I wrote a couple of text messages that she said, "Don't send that." And I was like, "All right, I'll wait till tomorrow and I'll read it again. But if I feel like I'm sending it, then I'm sending it, right?"
Right.
Uh,
Just remember, Mike, what other people think of you is none of your business.
I know. Well, that's where I got to last night, right? It was at least went back to Baltimore. I had some time and I spent some time just kind of meditating. And I thought, well, wait, two things. One, I didn't write it for them, right? I wrote it for the grandkids. And two, I like it. So what do I give a shit whether they do or don't, right?
Absolutely.
And then I'm pretty sure that they might not have even read it. So okay, let it go, right?
No, I
Um,
get it. It's the same.
but the reason I say that, the
Yeah.
reason I say that is I feel is I kind of feel the same way about our profession, and not just not the part of our profession that doesn't buy into our philosophy. I'm talking about the part of our profession that does buy into our philosophy. Sometimes I think, where are they or what are they doing? Are they not paying attention? Are they not studying? Are they not reading? And that's probably the truth, right? They're probably not.
Yeah.
Because if you immerse yourself in the work of getting better in your office, or in my case, the work of falling more in love with chiropractic, yeah, your fire is going to get lit again, right? We talked about that last call.
Absolutely.
Keep working on it.
So ramble, yeah, yeah. Aside from my kids, my wife, um, and my faith, I don't love anything more as much as I love the principle of chiropractic, you know?
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I just love. I mean, I always say I love chiropractic. I love all the
yeah,
parts of it. Every
yeah,
trying to find out as much as I could about it, how it works, why it works, what it's
yeah,
used in, every aspect of it, from scripts, procedures to writing a good report to understanding how insurance works. I mean, I felt like that's all part of the job.
yeah,
And but all if your intent isn't then to use that knowledge to serve more people, then you're going to get burnt out.
yeah.
Correct.
And you're going to be like,
Or,
oh, it's another narrative.
yeah,
As opposed to I'm going to write this report because it's going to help this person to get better.
hmm,
And if they're only, like you guys know, an injury PI case, they may only come for this many because they're locked into that. But damn it, they're going to get the best freaking 40, 50 adjustments out of me that they can.
yeah.
And if they're in another accent, they're going to get it. Yeah. I'm going to keep telling the story, right? Because that's my intention. And there's unfortunately all of us have way more files of people who didn't
Mhm.
become lifetime patients, and than did or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Right.
not for lack of trying. If
No.
you stop trying, it's gonna it just messes with your own brain, right?
Yeah.
Then it's a job, not a mission, not an intention, not a
Right.
life, right? So very different. Kind of like parenting, right? Very much like parenting.
Yeah. Especially when you parent the child that's taking over your practice.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's a double whammy right there. You know,
Yeah.
100% and 100%. And then they're not going to do it like you, right? They're
Yeah.
going to
they
have a different,
can't.
Yeah, they can.
never going to.
Look, there might come a day down the road where they're doing it better than you guys did.
Well,
Absolutely.
I
That's what
hope
we pray
so.
for.
I
Yeah.
would hope so.
And they're going to do parts of it better, and they're going to do
Yeah.
parts of it not
Yeah.
nearly as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Cool.
Uh,
So, Brad, I'll see you week after next, right? Not this weekend, the following weekend?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to figure the details out of that, but yes.
Okay. All right.
cool. Yeah, let me know how it goes.
I will. I will. I'm going to work on that thing at Sherman really hard. Be really nice if all of us could get to that. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be a good time. It'd be worth going down to.
Is there a time frame, Mike?
Now, when I'm going to ask him to give me multiple dates, and then I'll get with you guys and see what if what dates work for all of us.
And is that with the philosophy club? Is that what you said, or the
Yeah, it's a philosophy club. Hey, look, we might. I would love to hop on a plane and go down there and spend 2 days at Sherman, see the school again, see the guys. But if we have to do it like this, I'll do it like this, right?
sure?
So
Yeah, cool,
cool.
awesome.
All right,
All right, guys. Thank you.
I'm gonna
Thanks
get
much.
my umbrella, get my rubber boots on, and head out the door.
All right.
You take care.
All right,
Okay.
love you guys. I'll see you
Love you.
later.
Bye-bye.